Hola and welcome to a new episode of the Roofless Dog and Pony Show. My name is Julio Panicello. I am the dream alchemist at Roofless Painters, a free-range art school, atelier, and gallery for present-day romantics. With every episode, we reveal the theme of our next painting collection, so you can find out what we will be painting next and also the reason why we explain where the painting concept or the painting theme comes from and how it relates to our contemporary time and how we connect with it. We explore different possibilities for visual representation of the concept using images of paintings throughout art history as inspiration, while at the same time citing stylistic and historical references. In many ways, our episodes are like our paintings. They're messy, unpredictable, and unvarnished, and we make them as we go, and sometimes we have some technical difficulties, so please bear with us if something kind of like gets disconnected or something happens. So you can find all the episodes as video on Instagram and also on our YouTube channel. You can also find them as podcast on any podcast platform. And also, what else? Yeah, so if you feel like you are doing something that it doesn't require you viewing this, so you can also listen to this while you walk or drive or try to fall asleep. And you're welcome to contact us with any questions or comments about this episode. You're also welcome to contribute your notes to this presentation. We humbly stand to be corrected. We do our best to compile and explain our way of researching a concept and how we connect it to to our practice. But if there's anything you want to add or you want to contribute or you want to comment on, please just you can do it right now during the live, or if you're watching this later, you can just add it on a comment as a comment. So we're going to explain the genesis of the next painting collection. The title is going to be Sea Paintings. And before we actually start describing the reasons why we're doing this, because I think we're trying to thread some conceptual reasons and at the same time, or mostly conceptual reasons, but also some stylistic components. We're going to talk about two collections we did a few years ago that talk about other artists collecting things. So one of them, if I may just show you this. This was a collection of paintings, not those paintings on the wall. This is an image of an installation, I believe, in the National Portrait Gallery in London. But I think in 2019, sometime in 2019, let me just pull the information. We created, or we talked about this specific project, and this is called, this project is titled the Fabiola Project. The Fabiola Project by Francis Alice. So this project consists of more than, maybe at this point, more than 500 reproductions of a lost 1885 painting of the 4th century Roman Saint Fabiola by French artist Jean-Jacques Henneur. The project was initiated by this Belgian artist, and there's a Belgian connection here. So this Belgian artist, he started in the 1990s, and he moved to Mexico City from Belgium. There's a European connection, I guess, not only Belgian. Anyhow, he moved to Mexico City, and where he currently resides, by the way, and he lives there. So he was fascinated by the artisanal culture of the city, and he didn't have any money, so he had this passion for um, collecting or acquiring art, but he didn't have any money, so he decided to build his own art collection for himself by combining or combing, rather, I'm reading, combing the city's flea markets and antique and junk shops and looking for artwork. He expected to find copies of masterpieces by painters like Raphael, Leonardo, and Millet. Instead, he found and bought versions of Henner's Fabiola depicted in left-facing profile wearing a red headscarf. Gradually, Elise, the artist, casual collecting project gathered steam, and he and his friends discovered new images of the saint during their travels around the world. Essentially, that collection that we did, we created a new version of the Fabiola painting. But the idea is that we have in the past talked about how artists have worked with the concept of collecting to create their pieces. This project, the Fabiola Project, has been exhibited in many places around the world, and it keeps growing, and every time it's installed in a specific location, the arrangement of the pieces changes. So it's a combination of a conceptual piece with a physical installation-like aspect. So this is one example. We're going to give you another example of a collection that we did, and then we're going to talk about the proposal for this piece. So this is a piece by Zoe Leonard. Zoe Leonard is a contemporary artist, a conceptual contemporary artist or installation contemporary artist, and he has this piece. It's called 1961, and this is the year that Chloe Leonard's Leonard was born. She was born in 1961. It's a row of blue vintage used suitcases that they're arranged next to each other, and each of the pieces represents 1 year of her life. So she's currently alive, and the Whitney Museum, I believe it's the Whitney Museum, the Guggenheim Museum owns this piece. So each year that passes by, a new vintage used battered suitcase is added to the piece. So again, the idea of collecting a conceptual background or foundation for it, and something related to time passing that it's very meaningful to the artist. So for a different reason, I think when we talked about this piece, and so guess what? What we end up doing for that collection was painting vintage suitcases, not only blue, but we just painted suitcases. I forgot the reason why she chose blue, but I'm guessing it's something like deeply personal. And the concept is so charged in the sense that it represents the baggage that we carry year after year, but also the idea of not belonging to a single place, constantly moving, maybe ideologically or even emotionally. So now we're just going to go to the next, to the actual proposal for this series, and this is based on something that we saw, a museum. I'm not going to show you the actual museum. The Voorlinden Museum. There's a museum in the Netherlands called the Voorlinden Museum. The Museum Voorlinden, it's a museum in Wassenaar in the Netherlands. It was founded and it's privately owned by someone called Joop van Kaldenborg. We didn't have enough time to research who this person is, but anyhow, so it's been open since September 2016, so it's not a very old museum, and they have a current collection right now that's titled Art is the Antidote. Art is the Antidote. So it's a group exhibit of pieces that belong to the museum. And this museum from what we have gathered, it's interested in contemporary art, but with a very strong conceptual background. So art is the antidote. It's the show opened in January 26th, so at the beginning of this year, and the write up of the show tries to tackle the fact that on this period of time in human history with so much hardship and adversity, the war in Ukraine didn't happen yet when this show opened, but in a sense it could be part of what's happening throughout the world, I guess. This kind of like division and aggression and lockdowns, hardening and division. So the show tried to put together, or the museum tried to put together a show in which they offered the opportunity to jump to an alternative reality. And some of the pieces are humorous, or they're clever, or they're whimsical. The idea is for the show not to be overtly political, even though some of the pieces are very political, but to offer a ramp off the current stressful and really difficult time. So one of the pieces in the museum, we didn't know about this museum and we didn't know about this artist or this piece, is this. And I think if you're still watching, yes. So this piece right here is one of the artworks featured in the Voorlinden Museum in the Netherlands. In the current exhibition, Art is the Antidote. It's a piece by a contemporary German visual artist, I would say visual and conceptual artist. His name is Hans-Peter Feldman. Hans-Peter Feldman did this in 2012, and the title of this piece is Sea Paintings, and it consists of a grouping of paintings that he acquired in auctions of seascapes. So the quintessential, typical, old school the idea of a painting, a seascape. And the paintings are, some of them are old, some of them are a little bit more contemporary. But the idea is to kind of like present again the collection of paintings or the collection of objects. Present this as a single piece. Every time this is being shown, it has a different arrangement. And the pieces are framed, and in this particular version of this arrangement, he put all the pieces on the wall in a salon style grouping, which is extremely traditional. So let me just talk a little bit about this artist and also about the ways in which this piece has been presented in the past. So he was born in 1941, and he's known for collecting mundane objects and presenting them in a rearranged way, to give them a different meaning. So it doesn't sound very exciting, but it is. We just watched a couple of interviews, and we think that it's pretty incredible what he does. Anyhow, so Hans-Peter Feldman, I'm just reading right now, is a figure in the conceptual art movement and a practitioner in the artist book and multiple formats. He started his career just compiling images in tiny books without any caption, and the books got sort of like a visual theme, but the idea is sort of like to present or like disconnected elements around us, and by putting them together in a format book, just give them a different meaning or a different importance, elevating that subject to something much more meaningful. So anyhow, he has like different collections of books, and then he was invited. To just try the same conceptual basis to something different, and then he started collecting other things. And in 2012, he I don't know for how long he collected these pieces, but he started he presented this as one of his pieces, sea paintings. You can tell, or we're just going to tell you right now, the premise for this new painting collection that we're going to start tomorrow in our webinar and continue for the next 2 weeks will be to paint a typical sea painting or seascape. We're going to provide images of seascapes that are not famous, completely commercial versions, vintage and contemporary of seascapes, and we'll use those seascapes as the image reference for our painting. So this will be a painting of another painting, but not of a famous painting. Sort of like some of them are not even signed. Why are we doing this? Okay, so there is, oh, by the way, let me just, before I explain why we're doing this, I'm just going to show you a different installation of the same concept and how he uses the same objects but rearranged differently. So in this case, in a gallery in New York, the pieces were installed floating in the middle of the space. They were not hanging on the wall. Still sort of like resembling of salon style, but they were kind of like hanging at different heights. And the purpose of this was to create a three-dimensional space in which you could walk behind the paintings and look at the actual object without the content or the subject on it. So it just gave that installation a new meaning in the sense that you could get lost by the beauty of seeing different representations of a seascape and how it provided this idea of escaping reality in a way, but at the same time you could just walk around that installation and just see a group of paintings with no subject depicted on them. So we thought this was like a pretty cool approach. Let me see. Anyhow, so we wanted to show you the same piece but rearrange. Oh, and by the way, we didn't find images of another installation, but in another occasion what he did, the pieces were arranged in a way that the horizon lines of each of the seascapes were aligned in a single horizon line. In other words, if you can visualize each of the paintings and realize that there's a clear horizon line dividing the sea from the sky. In one occasion, this piece, Sea Paintings, was arranged in a way that all the paintings in a single row were aligned by the horizon line. So you would see a single horizon line that would match from one painting to the next, even though each painting had nothing to do with the painting next to each other. So another interesting way of like using the passion for collecting and creating an idea behind it in order to connect with the viewer. So why are we doing this? The reason is because in one of the interviews that we watched with Hans-Peter Feldmann, the German artist, contemporary artist, who is the author of this piece, Sea Paintings, he talks about why he started why he became an artist, essentially. And he says that in his childhood, art represented a way to escape the world that he knew at the time and create a world in which no one else outside it could just come in. So this idea of art as escape, as a refuge, and also as a way, he says, as a way of creating other worlds. He brings an example about how he remembers collecting stamps. And for him, the stamps, and for many people, I would say, the stamps represented a window to a different world. in which his imagination was given enough room or plenty of room to create this idea of a different world from the one that he was experiencing. So paintings as windows to other worlds, in a way that allows us to escape our current reality, is the reason why we thought this could be a good idea. We're constantly bombarded by really with images that are hard to digest or witness, featuring a reality that I would assume none of us want to happen. It's hard to feel like we are coexisting with such devastating realities that other people are experiencing. So, not to be tone deaf about what's happening, but we thought this could be a good opportunity to do something a little bit whimsical and cheesy, and at the same time fun and challenging style-wise. Because what we're proposing is we're going to create a portfolio of images, of paintings that we have found on eBay, paintings of seascapes that are selling on eBay for between $40 up to $150. And some of them are super predictable and very commercial, and they were done in an era in which this was a trend, the core trend. A lot of artists try to earn their living by painting reproductions of seascapes one after another repetitively and selling them to furniture showrooms or design showrooms. And that was at some point that was the thing to have on top of the sofa. It was like a painting of a seascape or a natural landscape or a landscape. So the idea, we're just going to show you a few. You will compile a series of images, but the idea is that we're going to bring these images of paintings of seascapes that are most of them they don't have any signature. They were done a few years ago. They don't really represent, or they don't have the value that some of the paintings in today's world have in auction houses. But I think that's another reason why we love this artist's work. Hans-Peter Feldman, he is trying to focus on the mundane and just give it like another meaning, elevating what we think doesn't have value. And we're just going to reproduce them. That's the point. We're just going to get these image references. We compile like a few, but the idea is to just reproduce or create a version of these paintings with our own style or to the best of our abilities. So to challenge this idea of becoming a copyist, but instead of becoming a copyist in a traditional art museum, turn of the century, we're going to be contemporary copyists of sea paintings. So we hope you, let me just bring a couple more. Some of them are quite terrible, but I love it. So the idea will be to create seascapes from paintings that are selling for a very low price on eBay that have no signature, essentially, and create a collection of windows to a different world, so we can allow ourselves to escape and live vicariously through our own painting practice during a time in which this is a lot of terrible things are happening in the world. So to recap, and by the way, we're gonna continue the conversation on Clubhouse after this presentation. We're going to talk about the book. So please, if you're watching this, join us. There's a link on our Instagram. Oh, yes. Okay, that's a very touchy conversation, but yes, I agree with that. What makes a painting terrible? It's in the eye of the beholder, and to start off. But yeah, we can continue that conversation. But join us tomorrow. The link is on our calendar. You can find it on our website. You can go or access our website through our Instagram bio or any other bio that you are watching this from, any other social platform and social media platform. Please join us. You can bring your own seascape painting that you want to use as reference. It could be famous. It could be Turner seascape if you want to. You don't have to use the image references that we're going to provide. But yeah, the title will be Sea Paintings. And again, we're doing recreations of seascapes done by painters that are not well known at all, and they didn't even write their signatures on their paintings. We'll talk more about Hans Peter Feldman. We didn't know about this artist. We didn't know about the Vorlinden Museum. We're going to show you more pieces in the current exhibition, Art is the Antidote, which I think is very appropriate. And also we'll read more of the statement of that exhibition, because I think it's important to see how refocused the purpose or the idea of art as a ramp off from contemporary, anxiety and struggles. So thanks for watching, and join us on Clubhouse in just a couple of minutes. And also join us tomorrow on the webinar. We're gonna dedicate 2 weeks for this collection. We're just coming off the Wisteria series, and the paintings are fantastic and incredible. So I think it would be interesting to kind of like move from the Wisteria subject, which had a lot to do with texture and study of color, onto a subject that also involves practicing texture and variations of color. From a distance, this looks fantastic. From up close, this kind of like, it's a pretty rehashed, I don't know how to explain it, rehashed version. Oh, and by the way, final note, highly recommend you watch any interview with Peter, Hans Peter Feldman, and he talks about the essence of art, what art means to him, and advice that he gives to people that are artists. And it's just profoundly meaningful, and it kind of like focuses on what's important and portrays the contemporary landscape of art making in a very simple but effective way that encourages you to continue doing what we do. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.